Two grown men still clean out other people's toilets for a living. They believe one job can fix everything they hate about their lives, becoming a waiter. So they sneak into a border restaurant to start at the bottom. But one bad drug deal puts the FBI and a cartel boss between them and the only friend each of them has. A man named Marky drives around in a small vehicle, talking gently to a dog named Pumpkin. The dog is sick and only has a couple of days left to live, and its best friend has just died, so Marky wants to give it one happy ride. Marky tells the dog it was lucky because at least it once had a best friend. Marky says he has never had that kind of luck himself and that people just do not seem to like him. Marky lets the dog enjoy its last lap. He asks the dog what it wants to do and he offers to go faster for it. Marky speeds up so the dog can feel the wind one more time. It is a small, kind act for a dying animal, and it tells us right away what kind of soft heart Marky has. Someone calls Marky over, telling him they have a big day ahead. Marky steps back into his real life, which is far less gentle than this quiet moment with the dog. The film jumps back in time to a school classroom. A young boy named Steve sits in class while a teacher asks the students simple questions about animals. Steve is not really listening. He is busy writing a letter to his father, telling him he misses him and that his mother is not the same without him at home. The teacher catches Steve not paying attention and calls on him. She asks him to name what a group of crows is called, trying to make him answer in front of everyone. The answer is a murder. The teacher uses this cruelly, telling Steve he can remember the word by thinking of his own father because his dad is in prison for murder. The other children pile on. They whisper that Steve's father was a drug dealer and that people are trying to kill both his dad and Steve himself. Steve has had enough. Tired of being mocked every day about his father, he stands up and announces that he is dropping out of school for good. On his way out, Steve passes some older boys who tease him about not having a girlfriend and about needing a hall pass. Steve simply repeats that he is leaving school and walks past them. The boys keep insulting Steve and his family, mocking his dreams and his poor truck. Steve takes the abuse quietly, used to being the target, and keeps moving. The bullies throw a few final cruel words before they drive off. Steve is left alone, walking away from the only school that ever made him feel small. Steve walks out of the building past a staff member who tells him he needs a pass. Steve just says again that he is dropping out and he leaves it all behind. The story shifts to an earlier, stranger moment from Steve's childhood. His mother stands over him, worried, because someone has spread a rumor by text that her boy is dead. We learn what happened. Young Steve was hit by a car on the side of the road and a kind stranger found him, carried him, and drove him to safety in a truck. The family fusses over Steve, who is hurt but still alive. They are not very bright and keep guessing wildly at how he was injured, even wondering aloud if he had drowned. Steve's mother is more interested in money than in his recovery. She talks about a cheap insurance plan she just signed up for, hoping his injury might pay out something. The young man who saved Steve gently insists the boy will be okay, but the family keeps treating him as if he is already gone, joking that their family dies easily. The relatives bicker about what they would buy with the insurance money. The whole family feels broke, neglected, and a little hopeless, the same poverty Steve will carry into adulthood. Most of the family hurries off to chase a free meal deal at a restaurant. They leave the injured boy behind and only the stranger offers to stay and watch over him. Now alone together, the stranger and the boy finally introduce themselves. The boy says his name is Steve, and a long, silly back and forth follows about how the name is spelled. The kind stranger tells the boy his own name is Marky. This is the quiet beginning of the friendship at the very center of the whole film. Marky decides to help Steve. Since Steve has just quit school, Marky offers to call the school for him and then invites Steve to come work at his job where they always need new hands. Marky even asks if Steve likes fancy restaurants, planting an early seed of the dream they will both chase later. For now, two lonely boys have found each other. Time jumps forward to the present, where grown-up Marky and Steve work a dirty job pumping out human waste. Marky approaches his boss, Mr. Troy, and politely thanks him for the work. Marky gathers his courage and asks Mr. Troy for a raise or some benefits. He explains that prices keep rising and that his mother needs money for an operation. Mr. Troy brushes him off with a vague promise of better times later. He reminds Marky of small past favors but refuses to give him any more money right now. Then Mr. Troy reveals an uncomfortable secret. He says he cannot even put Marky's real legal name on the company records because someone might recognize a name connected to Steve's dangerous father and come looking for trouble. To soften the bad news, Mr. Troy hands Marky more dirty work instead of a raise. Marky goes back to the messy job of pumping out tanks, swallowing his disappointment. While they work, Steve mentions Marky's personal life to the boss. He says Marky is stressed because he has an anniversary date coming up with his girlfriend, Pam, and does not know what gift to get her. Mr. Troy turns the hard labor into a friendly game. He bets Marky he cannot clear a blockage in a certain number of swings, trying to keep the mood light during the grim work. Marky takes the bet and swings hard. He finally breaks through the clog, winning the small wager and a moment of pride in front of his boss and his best friend. Mr. Troy praises Marky as the best at this filthy job, and for a moment Marky actually feels good about himself. It is a rare bit of warmth in a thankless line of work. A man named Terry shows up to mock them. He sneers that Marky and Steve are nothing but waste cleaners and that this is all they will ever be in life. Terry keeps insulting the two friends, trying to make them feel worthless. He paints their future as hopeless, just two poor men stuck handling other people's filth forever. Steve fires back at Terry the only way he can. He points out that at least Terry's father is around, while Steve's own dad is locked away in prison, a wound that still defines his whole life. At a funeral, a young man named Terry is mocked even after death. People remember how he hated the dirty septic job and refused to ever do it. Everyone recalls Terry's loud bragging. He always said the work was beneath him and that he was destined for something bigger, far away from pumping waste. Terry had sworn he would never touch the messy work. He wanted fame instead and chased a YouTube channel where he begged strangers to like and subscribe. In old videos, Terry films himself acting wild and asking viewers for money. He treats every clip like the start of something huge that never actually comes. Now Terry is gone. The mourners gently say he is in a better place, while one of them still tries to plug his old channel even at the grave. Marky and Steve are here too, working the funeral, lowering Terry into the ground as part of their job. They quietly wonder at the strange luck of it. Marky starts up the machine to finish the burial. The two friends keep working the dirty job nobody else wants, exactly the job Terry swore he was too good for. Steve looks over and spots his own mother among the mourners. Seeing her reminds him how much he still wants to help her and fix his family's life. A bitter funeral goer scolds Marky and Steve for clowning around instead of earning money. The two simply have no real cash and no real future to point to. Steve says goodbye to his mom as she leaves. It is good to see her doing a little better, even though money troubles still hang over both of them. Steve admits his mother is still upset with him. There was a chance to take an insurance payout if he had died from his old injury, but Steve chose to live instead. The friends repeat a saying Terry loved about the best time to start being long ago and the second best time being right now. The words push them to chase a real life. The story turns to Marky on a far bigger day. He is finally taking Pam to a special dinner, ready to ask her the most important question of his life. Marky tries to tell Pam how much their 6 months together mean to him. He wants the moment to be perfect before he gets down on one knee. But the dinner keeps falling apart. Their clumsy waiter, Mikey, brags about being a waiter while barely doing the job, breaking the romantic mood again and again. When Marky asks for simple things like water, Mikey gives useless answers and wanders off. Every time Marky starts his speech, the waiter cuts right across it. The chaos gets worse as a hot plate is shoved into someone's hands at the wrong table. The waiter keeps apologizing and keeps making the same painful mistake. Pam notices the necklace Marky gave her and someone asks if the stones are diamonds. Pam admits, a little embarrassed, that they are cheap fakes on a copper chain. Pam shows the message Marky had engraved for her. He meant to write sweetheart, but he spelled it wrong, turning his loving gift into something a bit silly. Marky pushes on and tries again to talk about their plans. He wants to surprise Pam with a romantic weekend trip for their coming anniversary. He explains he booked a room at a place called Magic Cacti for a couple of nights. He hopes the getaway will make the moment he proposes even more special. Right then, the waiter charges back with another hot plate at the wrong table. The clumsy chaos drowns out Marky's careful words once more. Frustrated, Marky says he just wants to ask one simple question without being interrupted, but the noisy restaurant gives him no quiet moment at all. Nearby diners loudly mock the Magic Cacti trip, calling it boring. Marky's big romantic plan is being picked apart by strangers before he can even propose. Another wrong dessert arrives and the waiter burns himself yet again. The whole meal has become a string of small disasters with no end in sight. Then a worker rushes in to say Marky's car is being towed outside. Confused and worried, Marky has to leave the table to go deal with it. Marky steps out, and back at the septic job, his crude co-workers mock him without mercy. They call him stupid and weak and laugh about his cheap car. The co-workers cannot understand why Pam stays with Marky at all. To them, he is slow and soft, and they tear him down behind his back. They drag up Steve too, joking cruelly about the day a car hit him as a child. They mock how he has acted ever since, treating his pain like a punchline. The co-workers even sneer about the funeral the boys just worked, wishing it had been Marky in the grave. Their words are heartless and constant. When Marky returns, they pretend they were only joking and act like they heard nothing. Marky lets it slide, used to being the target of their cruelty. Steve finds Marky alone and sees he has been crying. Marky lies that it is just an oil change, but Steve gently asks if this is really about Pam. Marky finally admits the truth. The co-workers wear him down, and worse, Pam has stopped answering his messages for some reason he cannot explain. To cheer himself up, Marky shows Steve the ring he bought to propose to Pam. He proudly points out the tiny diamond he saved hard to afford. Steve calls it real marriage metal and tells Marky the two of them will be so happy together. For a moment, Marky lets himself believe the dream is still alive. Then Steve sees a new post from Pam online. It says she is ready to celebrate, with a cactus symbol that matches the trip Marky planned. Steve reassures Marky that Pam simply went ahead to set up their anniversary at Magic Cacti. He insists girls love to surprise their partners that way. Still, Marky cannot shake one worry. If Pam is so excited, he asks, then why has she gone completely silent and stopped texting him back at all? Steve waves the worry away and tells Marky he is overthinking it. Feeling a little better, Marky agrees and the two friends head off together. In the truck, Marky tells Steve that if he ever marries Pam, Steve has to be his best man. Steve promises he would never miss it. Steve says that when they get back, he wants to pay for his mother's surgery to become a man so she can be his dad. He just wants a father in his life again. Steve asks if his wish is foolish. Marky tells him that being kind is never foolish and promises they will find a way to make it happen. Marky reminds Steve that he has never let him down before. Steve quietly agrees, and the two friends keep driving down the long road. To pass the time, Marky talks about how amazing waiters are. He says they walk into a room with confidence and remember every order without writing anything down. Marky decides that he and Steve are stuck on the wrong end of the food chain. Waiters carry food to people, while he and Steve only pump out the waste that comes out the other end. Steve tells Marky he is better than he believes. He bets that Marky cannot even name many waiters who are better than him. They start naming waiters they have known, like Rick Spicer, and quietly say goodbye to the ones who have died. The strange game makes the empty drive feel shorter. The talk turns back to Pam. Steve gently says that by assuming she is cheating, Marky is not giving their love a fair chance. Marky says he does not want to be right, he wants to be wrong about her, but she has not texted or called him in almost 4 days now. Marky tries to make excuses for Pam, guessing her phone is in airplane mode. He even jokes that he drives with airplane mode on too, since a car is just a plane without wings. Then Marky's phone buzzes. He thinks Pam has finally posted something online, and he nervously asks Steve to check it for him. Steve looks at the screen and goes quiet. Pam is in the post with another man and she is barely wearing anything. Marky asks if she is undressed. Steve says no, she is wearing the gold necklace that Marky bought for her, except now it is on this other man. Marky has seen enough. Crushed, Marky says his life is terrible and so is Steve's. Steve admits people make fun of him too, but he just chooses not to listen to them. Marky says he cannot go to their planned trip spot because that is where his relationship died, and he cannot go home where everyone treats him like a failure. Steve agrees he cannot go back either. At home, he is always trapped in his missing father's shadow, and he can never earn any real money there. Steve remembers an old saying that all good things happen in Mexico. With nothing left to lose, the two friends decide to keep driving south toward the border together. On the dark road, something darts in front of the truck. Marky panics and asks Steve if he hit it, hoping he only imagined the bump. They realize it was only a rabbit, but then more and more rabbits appear, pouring across the road faster than Marky can steer around them. The animals keep coming in waves, and Marky has no idea why so many are out here. He tries to swerve, but they are everywhere on the highway. Marky says that if he drives slowly, he hears crunching, and if he drives fast, he only hears thumping. He does not know what to do, so Steve just tells him to keep going. As they drive on, Steve suddenly spots a roadside sign and says it must be a message meant for them. Marky looks up to see what it says. The sign is an advertisement for an event coming to Tucson. The two of them joke about it for a moment, both pretending they would never go. Then a second sign catches their eyes. It mentions Busboys. Steve asks Marky if he knows what Busboys grow into over time. Marky does not know. Steve gives him the answer that changes everything for them. Busboys become waiters. This is the path to the powerful life they have been dreaming about. Excited, they decide to chase the waiter dream right now, but Marky stops, saying they cannot do it without a real plan first. So they make a plan together. They will walk in, charm the manager, and get hired as busboys. They believe in just 3 days they will be promoted to waiters. They imagine the perfect future that follows. Pam will come running back and follow Marky again, and Steve will finally have the money to take care of his mother. With the plan set and their spirits lifted, Marky asks Steve if he is ready. Steve says yes, and the two of them head off to find the restaurant. They arrive at a place called the Open Border Bistro and are greeted warmly. When they ask to see the manager, a worker tells them the manager is met inside a bathroom stall. Confused but desperate for the job, Marky and Steve follow the strange directions toward the bathroom to find manager Tim, where he apparently does his hiring. Inside the awkward bathroom setup, the men fumble around trying to look professional. Marky tells Steve to take a separate stall, and they argue nervously about how to handle the meeting. They settle in and prepare their approach. Marky tells Steve to start the conversation and promises that if Steve gets stuck, he will lean over and say something supportive. The plan falls apart at once as both of them freeze and wait for the other to speak first. Finally, one of them blurts out that they are here for the job. Manager Tim welcomes them in, but instead of a normal interview, he immediately starts asking them strange and crude questions, throwing the two friends completely off balance. Tim asks them bizarre, uncomfortable things, and Marky keeps whispering to Steve to stay quiet, but Tim keeps pushing, demanding answers in his blunt, rude way. The harder Marky tries to silence Steve, the more Tim insists Steve keep talking. The whole interview becomes a confusing mess as the two desperate men stumble through Tim's odd test. Strangely, Tim seems to enjoy the awkward answers and tells them to keep going. Their bizarre, fumbling honesty in the bathroom is somehow exactly what the crude manager wants to hear. Manager Tim looks at Marky and Steve and tells them the truth. The most they can hope for is to start as busboys, not waiters. Marky and Steve try to explain why they are even here. They saw a sign on the road, and that sign is what gave them the whole idea. They ask if this means they are now busboys. Manager Tim is confused that two grown men walked in chasing a busboy job at all. Manager Tim points out the obvious problem. Most busboys are teenagers, around 19 years old, and Marky and Steve are clearly much older than that. A call comes in about a customer problem, and Manager Tim sighs at his own life. Still, he asks if either of them has any restaurant experience. Steve quickly says that Marky does. Manager Tim gives in and tells them to come back tomorrow at 3:30, where a worker named April will show them the ropes. Manager Tim adds a strange warning that none of this ever happened. Marky panics and thinks it means they are not hired, but Tim says they are hired and just need to stay quiet. Marky is overjoyed and thanks Manager Tim like a man saved. The dream of becoming waiters finally feels real, even if they have to start at the very bottom. On the way out, Steve teases Marky about an old legal mess at a theme restaurant. Marky insists it was not his fault because he had caught Lyme disease. The next day, they arrive right on time for their first shift. Their guide promises to introduce them to the other busboys who will teach them how everything works. They are walked through the restaurant on a quick tour. They are shown the dishwashing station and then the busy kitchen where all the food comes out. A worker warns them about a tradition. When you get hired here, the other busboys jump you and beat you up, the way some gangs welcome new members. Steve is not even scared. He says he gets beaten up all the time, so being beaten up again does not bother him at all. The worker says new hires can run away or take the beating like a man. Then he jokes that Steve does not really look much like a man anyway. Steve wonders if it is his hair that makes him look that way. The worker tells him it is not the hair, it is simply everything about him, and Steve accepts it. Then Marky and Steve are introduced to Ginger, a kind worker who will be their guide for the day. She welcomes them warmly to the open border bistro. Ginger asks Marky to help tie her apron, and he gladly does. A young boy nearby teases Marky for looking at his mother, but Ginger keeps it light. Ginger proudly introduces the boy as her son Oscar and says he is going to be a doctor one day. Oscar bluntly replies that he is not even in school. The strange staff keeps surprising them. One says he is trans, others crack rude jokes, and Marky and Steve simply nod along, trying not to upset anyone. Ginger quietly shares something sad about her life. She works so much that she barely feels like a woman anymore, and her daily eyeliner is the one nice thing she does for herself. Marky, in his simple, kind way, reassures Ginger that she is definitely a woman. It is clumsy, but it is warm, and it shows the gentle heart under his confusion. Ginger says something odd as a warning that if anything ever happens to her, they should not call the police. It hints quietly that this place is not normal. More coworkers introduce themselves, including a couple named Gregor and Ramana. Ramana cheerfully calls herself a healer, and the two friends greet everyone politely. The staff say they are glad for the extra help because the place is short on workers. Then comes the important news that waiter promotions happen in just 3 months. Everyone here is hoping to be the one promoted to waiter. Marky and Steve realize this is their chance, the exact dream they came chasing, now only 3 months away. A bitter coworker rolls up and introduces himself as Murderball. He is in a wheelchair, and he greets the new pair in his own sour, blunt way. Manager Tim gathers the whole staff for a shift meeting. He tells them to stay sharp, help the waiters, but never get in their way during service. He lays out the harsh order of the restaurant. The waiters are the humans, and the busboys are only the shadows who serve them silently in the background. He runs through the daily rules, like rolling silverware and keeping every customer's drink full. The two new busboys try hard to remember all of it. Manager Tim points out Marky and Steve as the two new busboys. He tells the staff to keep them close until they learn the job, then bluntly says he doubts they will last. The shift begins, and Marky struggles right away. He keeps making mistakes, getting scolded by Murderball, and even little Oscar throws insults at him. Marky tells Steve he feels like he is messing up at every turn. He even broke some dishes, and he wonders out loud if he can really do this job. Steve refuses to let Marky give up. He reminds Marky of all the times he was strong and good, and says no one learns a hard new job perfectly on the first day. Steve makes it personal and honest. He tells Marky that if Marky gives up, then Steve will give up right behind him because they only have each other. That quiet promise lands. Steve says he is not ready to quit, so Marky finds new strength and the two friends push on through the shift together. Time passes and the waiter announcement draws near. Murderball boasts that he should win it, and a coworker who has been here only a week brags that he is faster and better than everyone. The other busboys mock Marky and Steve for being the oldest busboys anyone has ever seen. The competition for the single promotion is clearly going to be hard. Then a handsome new busboy named Rick races past, and everyone notices him. People say he is so good-looking that a photo of his stomach got 100 likes online. Marky suddenly worries about a real danger. What if the restaurant only promotes one of them, splitting up the team? Steve insists they are a team, but admits the bosses may not care. During a quiet moment, Steve asks Murderball how he ended up in the wheelchair. Murderball claims he caught polio from eating one of the restaurant's chicken enchiladas. The day finally comes for the one-waiter promotion. Manager Tim gathers the whole tired staff together and reminds them, in his usual rude way, that only a single waiter job opens each year. He waves goodbye to one worker and moves down the line, pretending to think hard about who has earned the prize. Tim tells the group that almost none of them deserve it. He snaps at one busboy to put down a biscuit because biscuits are only for waiters, not for them. He adds a strange new rule from above. This year, the chosen waiter cannot be a citizen by birth. He starts checking who fits and dismisses people one by one. Tim praises a worker named Ramana for the calm way she handled a huge table on a busy holiday, reading their orders from hand signals alone. For a moment, it sounds like she might win. Then he turns to Marky and Steve. He notes that they have worked over 80 days in just 3 months and asks aloud what could earn a promotion if that does not. He even compliments Steve for pushing through his fake illness while working, calling it remarkable. The two friends start to hope this is finally their moment. Tim moves on to Murderball, the bitter man in the wheelchair, and complains about the dark, ugly drawings he keeps making on the bathroom walls. Tim says they are honestly too scared to fire Murderball, so he keeps his place and stays out of the running for waiter. At last, Tim reaches Rick, the handsome new busboy. He admits Rick has only been there under a week, far too short a time to judge his commitment to the restaurant. Tim says out loud that this is a very hard choice. Then he drops the act completely and says no, it was not hard at all. He calls Rick up to the front and gives him the single waiter job on the spot. Marky and Steve stand frozen, unable to believe it. The other workers groan that Rick does not deserve it, but Tim shrugs that Rick is good-looking and a business naturally puts a face like that out front for the customers. Tim announces that the next chance at a waiter job will not come for another 6 months. Then he barks at everyone to get back to work. Marky is crushed. He quietly admits he really thought they had a real chance this time, and now the dream feels far away again. Steve takes it even harder. He reminds Marky that the doctor keeps calling because that waiter money was how he planned to pay for his mother's surgery. Marky tries to comfort him, saying 6 months is not so far off. Steve insists that it is because it means 6 more months before he can prove anything. For Marky, it means 6 more months before he could ever go back to Pam and say he can take care of her as a real waiter. A coworker reminds Marky that Pam is already seeing another man, at least going by her posts online. Marky weakly hopes the photos are not even real. Murderball cuts in to mock them, saying they should work out more so women would stay. Steve snaps back that they work 7 days a week and have no time for anything. The friends watch Murderball roll off and notice he now lives in a nice place right beside the restaurant, given to him after he won his lawsuit over the bad food. Marky stares in disbelief that even Murderball got a new home and a payout. It feels like everyone around them is winning except the two of them. They scroll their phones and see former kitchen workers now living rich lives and joke bitterly about how each of them found some lucky way up while they stay stuck. Out of money again, Marky and Steve drive back to the clinic where they regularly sell their own body fluids for cash, greeted warmly by the woman who runs the place. They agree to give again even though they gave so much the week before that they can barely stand. The prices have changed, but they need every dollar. While they wait, the kind clinic worker gently asks Marky when he will finally ask her out. He stumbles, saying he is in the middle of something right now. She has heard that he is actually free now. Marky mumbles about the online photos again, still not ready to let go of Pam, and she lets the moment pass. Drained and dizzy from giving so much, Steve has to sit down for a while just to keep from passing out. The two are running on empty in every way. Back near the restaurant, they spot former kitchen workers who suddenly became millionaires. Steve explains the simple, ugly truth: those men are selling drugs. Steve says those workers took control of their own lives and that the two of them must do the same. They do not have enough money to survive another 6 months. They count their cash and find they are completely broke, even after selling every fluid in their bodies. They cannot understand where it all went. Then Steve gets an idea. He remembers slurping up some leftover drug a rich customer left on a table. Sure, he is not weak like other people about it. Marky worries that selling drugs is dangerous. Steve waves it off with strange logic about how everything in life is dangerous anyway, so they may as well try. Steve says they have no choice if they ever want to pay for his mother's surgery. Both of them badly want her to finally get the help she needs. Marky agrees he hates the idea, but they need the money and waiters have money, so selling once feels like the only path left to them. Then Marky lays out the real plan: make one big drug sale, use the cash to buy their own restaurant, and then simply promote themselves to waiters. Steve is amazed. To him, this scheme fixes everything at once: their money, their dream, and Steve's mother. They decide to go ask around for drugs to sell. A dealer agrees to front them the drugs on a confusing split where he keeps almost everything and they get almost nothing after his made-up fees. They take the package and head off to sell it, ducking into a freezer to hide while they plan, even though neither of them can quite remember why. Marky lays out the plan. He says they will not make the mistakes from the movies where people get rich and waste it all on flashy things. They will do just one big sale and then walk away clean. The plan is simple in his mind: one quick deal, enough money to start their own restaurant, and then goodbye to the dirty life forever. They walk up to a rough-looking stranger on the street. Marky and Steve try to act like real dealers, greeting the man with friendly words they clearly do not mean. Then Marky just asks him plainly if he wants to buy some drugs. He is so honest about it that there is no act left at all. The man pulls a badge and shouts that they are under arrest. He is an undercover officer, and Marky and Steve have walked straight into a police trap. Steve says Marky's name in shock, frozen on the spot. The two friends suddenly realize they are surrounded and have no idea what to do. Officers swarm in and order them onto the ground. They shout for the two men to get down on their knees, treating them like real criminals. Marky and Steve fumble and panic, not even sure how to follow the simple orders. They are too confused and scared to do anything right. In the chaos, they stumble into the wrong place entirely. Marky and Steve look around, lost and embarrassed, and quietly say they think they do not belong here. Somehow, against all sense, the two friends slip away from the whole mess. The trap closes, but Marky and Steve are not caught in it yet. The next morning, Marky wakes Steve with energy. He says today is a big day and they are going to sell their pills, called Dexedrine, for real this time. Steve is confused about the days. He asks about yesterday, mixing up the ice cream they had with the drug bust they barely escaped from. Marky reassures him that they got away with it. Nobody is chasing them, so they will simply try the sale again, only smarter this time. Marky explains his new idea. He will hide all the pills in the trunk of the car so the drugs are never actually on their bodies if anyone checks. He believes that keeping the drugs in the trunk makes them safe from the law. In his simple thinking, this little trick means they cannot get in trouble. Steve has one serious thing to tell Marky. With a worried face, he warns him not to feed the pet lizard they keep at home. Marky swears he barely touched the lizard. He admits he gave it one small candy, but insists that does not really count as feeding it. Steve sends Marky to fetch a cleaning tool for the lizard's care. Even with a drug deal ahead, the two friends still fuss over their little pet like worried parents. Out selling again, they dream about the money. They talk about finally giving Steve's mother the cash she needs for her surgery, the goal that started all of this. A new buyer appears and the friends get ready. Marky and Steve try once more to act tough and sell their pills to the curious customer. The buyer mocks the strange pills and how they look. Marky and Steve laugh along nervously, pretending they know exactly what they are selling. The customer says he has heard these pills are powerful. He even jokes that a friend of his took them and ruined his life, which should be a warning to everyone. But the friends push past the warning, too eager for the money. They start to settle on a price and a number of pills with the man. Steve frets that he cannot sell too many because he has to be at work in 1 hour. Even in the middle of crime, his honest worker's habits keep showing through. The buyer offers a low price, then jokes about whether they are police. Marky and Steve clumsily promise they are not cops, missing how strange the whole talk sounds. They go along with everything the buyer says, even writing his words down. The two are so simple that they treat his rambling like serious business instructions. The man decides the pills are real and gets excited. He happily takes a large amount, telling them it is finally party time for him. Marky and Steve grow nervous as the buyer takes far too much at once. They warn him that the dose looks dangerous, but he does not listen. Through it all, Marky holds onto his real dream. He reminds himself that this money is so he can finally propose to his girlfriend Pam, even though she has already left him. Later, an officer tells them no charges will be pressed this time. It seems the two friends have slipped free yet again, free to walk away. But a powerful new voice cuts in. A man steps forward and introduces himself as Agent Boyd of the FBI, with his partner Agent Tolly beside him. Boyd is loud and frightening, full of wild threats. He warns Marky and Steve that he will make their lives a nightmare unless they do exactly what he says. The two friends are clearly terrified of this aggressive agent. They shrink back, too scared to speak clearly, as Boyd looms over them. Boyd demands they tell him everything they know. He pushes hard, sure that these two fools have stumbled into something much bigger than themselves. When Boyd asks what they know, Steve answers about the wrong thing. He starts talking about his father going to prison when he was 7 years old, missing the real question. Boyd snaps that he means the restaurant, not Steve's family. He calls Steve an idiot, and loyal Marky quickly tells the agent not to insult his best friend. The friends ramble about pointless details of the busboy job. They talk about salt on the chips and breaks before shifts, while Boyd grows more and more frustrated. Boyd finally pins them down and asks who they sell drugs for. Marky explains they were passed over for the waiter promotion and just need money, nothing more. When the friends name the pill Dexedrine, Boyd reacts strangely. The drug clearly touches something personal in the hard agent's own past and softens him for a moment. Then Boyd admits he understands them better than they think. He confesses that he too was once a busboy, passed over for waiter so many times that he gave up and joined the FBI instead. Boyd shows them something important. He reveals a photo of a dangerous drug kingpin who goes by the name Padre Notch, the true target of this whole investigation. The agents discuss using the two friends as secret informants inside the restaurant. They quietly admit the plan will probably get Marky and Steve killed and seem fine with that. Boyd makes their crime sound serious. He tells them that selling fake pills is illegal, and worse, one of their buyers already crashed a car after taking them. He explains the pills are dangerous and not what they seem. The drugs were smuggled across the border, and the man carrying them got so high he wrecked his vehicle. Then Boyd offers a deal. He says the FBI will drop all the charges against Marky and Steve, but only if the two friends agree to help them. He reveals the FBI has been watching the open border bistro for a long time. Heavy drug activity flows through it, and they need someone on the inside to learn the truth. The choice is brutal and simple. Help the FBI spy on their own restaurant or go to prison for the rest of their lives. The friends have almost no way out. Boyd says they will first be placed somewhere undercover for practice. He wants the two beginners to get a feel for the work before facing real danger. Cornered and frightened, Marky and Steve agree. With shaky voices they say yes, and just like that they become secret FBI informants against a cartel. The friends ask what kind of information they are even supposed to gather. Boyd tells them to simply keep their ears open and stay alert, since this first job is only practice. Boyd sets the time and sends them off. For their training, the FBI plants the two grown men undercover back inside a high school, an absurd place to begin. Marky and Steve play students again, blending in among teenagers. They wear hidden recording wires and try to act young while gathering practice information. The pair clumsily chat with classmates about a science fair and projects. They mishear simple words and bumble through, clearly far too old and lost for the school halls. They make a plan to meet after school. The friends remind each other they are wired, telling one another to soak up any useful information they can find. In class, a teacher asks the students to name a piece of equipment. Marky and Steve panic at first, fumbling for the answer in front of everyone. Then their real life saves them. Drawing on years of septic work, Steve calmly explains exactly how a sump pump works, surprising the teacher and the whole class. The teacher praises the answer, amazed at the new student's knowledge. For one rare moment, the two friends actually shine, proud of the dirty job that taught them something real. Marky and Steve sit through a strange class with Agent Boyd, learning how to act undercover. The questions are silly and the two friends answer them badly, but Boyd keeps pushing them along. Boyd asks them what they learned on their first day. Steve admits it was a hard day and his stomach hurts because he ate too much candy at lunch. Boyd plays them a secret recording he made to test their skills. He wants them to listen closely and catch any clues hidden inside the everyday talk. Marky misses the clue completely. He says the man on the tape simply played his instrument badly, missing the real point Boyd was trying to teach. Steve shares what happened to him during training. Strangers insulted him, saying he looked old and small, and he slowly works out that the words were meant to hurt him. Boyd tells them not to worry about their mistakes. Tomorrow he is sending them back into the restaurant for real, fully ready to spy on the people there. He asks if they are ready and Steve answers with eager courage. The two friends now have their real mission: gather information inside the open border bistro. Back at the restaurant, Marky and Steve try to look busy while secretly watching everyone. They worry they stand out, but they tell each other their poor spying looks completely normal. They hear strange sounds and quietly guess what is making them, treating the restaurant like one big clogged pipe they must understand. Their old septic habits follow them everywhere. They decide something is blocking the flow of the place, just like a clogged tank. To them, every mystery feels like dirty plumbing waiting to be cleared. Steve wonders if they should warn manager Tim about the trouble. Marky shrugs it off, saying it is the restaurant's problem and the owners surely have insurance. The two friends snoop around the staff lockers, searching for clues. They quietly question a coworker who says he is only saving money to win his children back after a hard divorce. Trying to be clever spies, they bluntly ask another worker if he sells drugs for an outside cartel. The man calmly says no, and the friends awkwardly move on. Manager Tim appears and asks if they have seen the new work schedule. Marky stumbles and blurts out that they were just trading deepest secrets, then asks Tim for his. Tim shares an odd story about an old roommate who spread lies about him. Then he snaps at the two friends and orders them to stop talking and get back to work. Marky and Steve quietly celebrate, sure they have gathered useful information. They feel like real undercover agents now, even though they have learned almost nothing useful. Outside, the friends notice some rough local dealers pulling up in a car. They try to stay calm and keep watching, pretending they belong there. The dealers grow angry and confront them, shouting that this corner is their territory. They warn Marky and Steve to leave and stop selling on their streets. Marky and Steve stay weirdly polite during the threats, saying they only want to grab some pizza. The dealers keep yelling and telling them to get moving. The dealers try to drive off in a hurry, but their car will not start. They are out of gas, which turns their scary exit into a clumsy mess. Marky and Steve calmly offer to bring the stranded dealers something, completely unbothered by the threats. The angry men keep cursing while stuck and helpless in their dead car. The dealers panic about losing their things inside the car. They argue over a favorite music disc left behind, while the whole standoff falls apart around them. Marky and Steve walk away unharmed, joking that no one came to protect the area. The dangerous threat has fizzled out, and the two friends feel oddly lucky again. The friends sit down and order food, still treating the spy mission like a normal day out. They casually pick dishes while pretending to keep watch on the restaurant. They run into Samuel, a coworker wearing a wrap around his head. He explains it is not a hat but a bandage because he was badly beaten on the job. Samuel says many workers jumped him near the hot grill far more than he could fight. He is still healing, but he insists he is slowly getting his strength back. Samuel reveals a hard truth about this border restaurant. Workers get beaten just to earn the right to become busboys, and he calls it the price they all pay. Samuel says the pain is worth it, even though his eyes are hurt and he cannot see far. He admits he may need outside help to keep going. He hints that Steve is the one people now talk to for help. Steve tries to take something from him, but Samuel firmly stops him, saying he still needs it. Samuel explains he needs the item for his recovery, not anything strange. The friends slowly understand he is hurt and struggling more than he first let on. Marky decides they should leave, remembering the police already hold all their belongings. The danger of their fake drug arrest still hangs over everything they do. Samuel kindly pays their bill for them. He tells the friends to remember him kindly when their supplier finally arrives, still believing they are real dealers. Walking off, Marky and Steve joke about feeling like famous movie criminals. They are clearly in over their heads, but they keep up their brave, playful mood. Back inside, manager Tim gathers the staff with bad news. He warns them that something serious has gone wrong and they all need to listen carefully. Tim reminds everyone about Rick, the handsome new waiter who won the one promotion. Some workers grumble that Rick only got the job because of his family connections. Tim cuts off the jealous talk and shares the real worry. Rick has not shown up for 3 shifts in a row, and even his family does not know where he is. Tim asks if anyone knows what happened to the missing Rick. No one has answers, and a quiet unease settles over the whole strange staff. Tim warns that if Rick stays missing, he will be forced to promote one of them instead. The vanishing of Rick suddenly puts the busboys back in the running. Manager Tim tells the staff to stay sharp and get back to work because the new waiter Rick is handsome and now missing. Marky and Steve are amazed at all the worry over one missing waiter. They wonder if anyone would even care this much if they quit. They notice the restaurant put out a full alert for Rick, but believe manager Tim would not care at all if the two of them walked away. To test the idea, one of them jokingly shouts that he quits. The kitchen staff immediately turn on him as if he is fresh meat. The cooks gang up and roughly haul him toward the hot grill, treating the joke like a real betrayal. He panics and begs them to stop, finally proving that quitting here is dangerous, not freeing. The others let him go and laugh it off, telling him he is fine. The whole thing was just the kitchen having cruel fun. Manager Tim looks him over and says the week show barely counts for half a meal, unimpressed by the chaos. A late customer thanks Steve for staying behind to serve him. Steve says the staff likes to keep their customers happy, at least some of them. The customer asks Steve about his strange old coworker. It is a slow night, so someone has to be sent home early. They decide they still need Oscar and his small arms to reach into a blocked pipe, so Oscar stays on the job. Manager Tim tells Steve his shift is over. Steve says he will go check on his best friend Marky before he leaves. The customer, an older man, mishears and asks if Steve means his own son. Steve is confused and explains Marky is just a friend he has known for years. Steve casually tells the man that he once met Marky because Marky rescued him after he got hit by a car as a child. The man calls Steve a hero for surviving, but Steve says it is not that simple. The man asks whatever happened to the driver who hit the boy. Steve quietly answers that the hard part is the driver was him. In a sudden flash, the man imagines being hit himself, the words landing like a blow. He asks if Steve is okay. There is a silly mix-up about the word poison and a t-shirt, the kind of joke that breaks the heavy moment. Then the man circles back to the real wound, repeating that the boy got hit by a car, unable to let the fact go. The man tries to comfort Steve with a strange kindness. He says somebody was always going to hit the boy. He tells Steve the child was lucky that the driver turned out to be him, twisting the tragedy into a gift. The man drifts into a dark, dreamlike memory of his own painful past, with cruel taunts echoing from his childhood. The same words spin in his mind about the driver who hit the boy and how someone was always going to do it. He remembers his own small life and quietly admits that he was a busboy once and in a way still is. Back in the dining room, shock spreads when someone shouts that Murderball has knocked over a vase. He is standing on his own legs. The staff stare in disbelief at Mr. Ball, the bitter man in the wheelchair, now upright and walking after years. The workers call it a miracle and a sign from heaven, crowding around to witness Murderball back on his feet. His co-worker Roy praises him for standing. Murderball says it took everything out of him and asks for help back into his chair. The others keep calling him a miracle and saying no one will ever believe it. Murderball agrees that they never will. Tired, Murderball asks to rest, but the excited workers crowd in and beg to touch his suddenly magic legs. They fawn over his legs in a clumsy, comic frenzy until Murderball finally tells them that is enough. Marky and Steve hear the wild news. Their coworkers swear that Murderball did not quit. He actually walked on his own two legs like a normal person. Steve refuses to believe it since the doctors said Murderball would never walk again. Oscar insists he saw it with his own eyes. To settle it, Oscar promises to go get a selfie with Murderball as proof that he is truly walking again. Then Steve drops his own bombshell. He finally learned to hit him with a car when he was a child, and it was his former best friend Marky. The others are not even surprised that Marky was the driver. Heartbroken, Steve goes quiet over the betrayal. Oscar finds Murderball and asks for a selfie, joking that he just wants to prove to everyone that Murderball is evolving and walking again. Oscar chases after Murderball wanting the photo while his legs are still working, but Murderball slips away and vanishes. Searching, Oscar instead finds the missing waiter Rick in a hidden place. A rough voice orders Oscar to start walking, and he is taken captive too. Oscar gawks at the strange underground space, mistaking it for part of a trailer or a three-bedroom home, not realizing the danger. He spots Murderball down there and cheerfully greets him, still clueless. Murderball, now trapped and bitter, threatens to kill him. Murderball snaps that things have changed and orders the guards to drag Oscar away into the hidden lair below the restaurant. Upstairs, Marky asks the staff if anyone has seen Steve. A coworker tells him Steve does not want to see him now that he knows Marky hit him with the car. Marky keeps searching for Steve. Other workers say they overheard Steve on the radio saying something about Murderball before he disappeared. More coworkers wander up late for their shift and confused, joking that Marky looks like he is filming a video. They find a dark hole in the ground and wonder aloud if Murderball fell down it. They call into the opening and get no answer. Marky stares into the hole, sick with worry. In one day he may have lost both his best friend Steve and his coworker Murderball. Down inside the lair, Steve finds the trapped Rick, who begs to be pulled out, complaining he is starving and losing his tan after days stuck below. The strange hideout is even wilder than expected, with a small club tucked inside, leaving the men dazed by what is hidden under the restaurant. Steve realizes he has fallen into the same dungeon. He had been looking for Murderball and now he is trapped too. Then Marky climbs down after them. He tries to explain himself to Steve, desperate to make things right about the old car crash. Armed men order all of them up and herd the friends, Rick, and the others together as prisoners deep beneath the restaurant. Murderball reappears among the captors. The trapped men marvel that he can really stand and walk, while old grudges between them all boil over. Down in the lair, the cartel boss tells Marky and Steve he wishes he could let them walk away. He says he believes them, but he cannot. They have seen too much, he explains. Once you see something, you cannot unsee it, so the two friends are out of time. He raises his gun and tells them to say their last words. Steve goes first. He pulls out an old bandana and ties it on, saying his father gave it to him when he was a small boy. He remembers his dad taking him to a strange shop before prison, treating it like the best day of his life. The bandana is the one good thing he has left. Steve says he is wearing it so that when he reaches heaven, his lost father will be able to find him in the crowd. Then it is Marky's turn and his confession is for Steve. He admits the truth he has hidden for years. Years ago, he was driving the family dog around and the dog wanted to try steering the car itself. Marky let it happen, even though he knew it was a foolish idea. The dog drove badly and the car hit a child. That child was Steve. Marky got scared and never told anyone it was him. Crying, Marky says he is sorry it happened, but Steve is his best friend in the whole world. He cannot die knowing Steve is angry at him. Steve looks at him and forgives him completely. The secret that could have broken them only pulls the two friends closer. Steve, embarrassed by all the emotion, tells Marky to stop being so soft, and Marky tells him to be quiet. Their friendship holds even at the end. The cartel boss says it is finally time to die, but as he steps closer, he freezes, staring hard at the bandana around Steve's neck. He starts describing that same strange shop, the new flavors the boy tried, the long, sick ride home. He knows these memories because he lived them. He says he gave that very bandana to a boy on his 5th birthday. The room goes silent as everyone understands what this means. Steve stares back and whispers one word, "Dad." The terrifying cartel boss is his long-lost father. Father and son rush together, both stunned. Steve always believed his dad was locked away in prison for all these years. But his father admits he escaped within a month. He wanted to find Steve and know him, yet he stayed away, afraid he would be a bad influence on his son. He says he tried to visit every week for 9 years, but was always turned away and told Steve was busy. Steve cannot believe his father was this close the whole time. The father is embarrassed by his own choices. He always dreamed of leaving this criminal life and stepping into Steve's simple, honest one instead. Steve, overjoyed, asks his dad what happened, then notices his father has been shot in the foot during the chaos above them. His father holds him and says everything will be okay now. He wishes out loud that he could have been there for Steve through all those lost years. Steve tells him it does not matter because his dad is here for him now. After a lifetime of waiting, the boy finally has his father back. The tender moment shatters as armed FBI agents storm the underground room, shouting for everyone to freeze and put their hands up. In the noise, Murderball, the bitter coworker who suddenly learned to walk again, is caught in the gunfire and shot down. Agent Boyd arrives and is surprised to find Marky and Steve there too. The pair sheepishly admit they had been part of the plan through a group chat. Marky tells Steve he is happy for him, glad his father remembered the bandana and gave it back. The two friends share the win together. They marvel that Murderball really could walk after all, like a wobbly baby, right before he got shot. The whole night has been one long shock. An agent calls for silence and asks if anyone can still see the cartel boss. But Steve's father has already slipped away into the desert, with the heat well over 100 degrees. Back at the restaurant, manager Tim gathers the staff and calls it a special day. He praises the heroic work that helped push drug crime out of the bistro. As a thank you, he presents Steve and Marky each with a shiny pewter bus tub, a proud little reward for the two lowly busboys. Then, with Rick still missing and the restaurant in the news, Tim announces he will finally promote one busboy up to the rank of waiter. Against his own better judgment, he calls Marky forward and names him the newest waiter at the Border Bistro. The dream Marky chased has come true. Marky steps up and remembers how, months ago, he believed becoming a waiter would finally give him the image, the girl, the money, and the future. But standing there, he realizes he was wrong. He already has everything he ever truly wanted because he has a real friend in Steve. So Marky turns the promotion down. He says he would rather stay right where he is, a busboy standing next to his best friend, busboys for life. Then he asks manager Tim if the waiter promotion can be given to someone else and points to the hardest working person in the whole building. He chooses Ginger, the single mother who breaks her back every day for her family. Tim approves it, and Ginger becomes a waitress at last. Ginger thanks them, though now that she is a waitress, she jokes that someone has to go back to bussing tables. Marky happily accepts being a busboy again. Outside, Marky and Steve start to part ways, then laugh when they realize they are both walking the same direction anyway. Nothing can really separate them. Steve shares his good news. With his father back in his life, he feels he can finally relax about the money for his mother's surgery. He decides to do something for himself and finish high school, the place he once hated but secretly enjoyed while working undercover. Marky offers to be his tutor. The two friends head off together to make some toast, still busboys, still side by side, finally happy with the small good life they have